Hi, good evening, everyone. So welcome to this panel discussion brought to you by MDM. And my name is Bernard. I'm going to be the moderator for this. And thank you so much for joining. So we're going to talk about turnaround management, how businesses in Singapore and the global, what they did during the pandemic. So how they turn around the business from loss making, or how they survive this pandemic. So we're going to have eminent industry leaders based in Singapore, entrepreneurs joining us. Teck, Keng, who's the founder, managing director of MyDealMatters. He's an experienced entrepreneur. He is joining. Hi, welcome, Teck, for this panel discussion. Pleasure meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you.
Welcome. Next is Samuel Young. Samuel, and an entrepreneur, a business owner for a law firm. We also have experience in M&A. Pleasure meeting, Samuel. Thanks for joining. Good evening. Okay, and then Andy is as a head of growth and a growth leader for Insider, which is a marketing automation platform. So works closely with some of the top brands globally as well as in Singapore. So he knows you. So Andy knows much better than anybody else when it comes to corporate business marketing, on the day-to-day activities, how the pandemic, helped actually like a pandemic, become like a catalyst where everybody has to move, digitally, this become a digital turnaround where they have to start turnaround management using digital media. And so thank you, Andy. Thanks for joining. Good evening.
Good evening, Bernard. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Pleasure. So how are things with you? All well?
Things are pretty good. And KL flying back to Singapore tomorrow. Yeah, looking forward.
Good to know that. So to start with, hi Samuel. So we'll start with you. So you're kind of being a law firm, the pulse of the people, the mindset of the people, so what are the issues going around among the businesses, among the people, among the government, all that. So you as a law firm, I feel they're the people know the ground zero of even whether it is politics and whether the corporate laws. So I don't know. I'm not going to ask you whether you become very busy because of the pandemic or too many cases. I'm not going to. But in general, to start with my questions is, what are the kind of issues you are facing? I mean, your clients are bringing it to you during the pandemic. So how are you dealing it? Because pandemic is a time business owners or employees, everybody went through a tough time, so a lot of people could not pay their salaries on time. A lot of people, so they could not get money from the vendors. So what are the general issues? I won't say problem, like issues you face from the customers and from the businesses. What do you think, from your point of view, if you can take 3 minutes of your time, if you can talk about that, that would be really nice.
Thank you, Bernard. I think as a law firm, yes, you're right. We do seem to have our ears to the ground a lot more than the other industries, and the other professions as well. And one thing I noted is that the pandemic is dynamic. It doesn't stay still, and different problems were faced by industries across the board at different times and different phases of the pandemic. So if I recall correctly, right at the beginning, there was this general sense of this belief that the world might shut down. And when that became a reality, there was this struggle to understand what that actually meant for operational issues. And before you know it, of course, we were receiving a lot of queries about force majeure clauses. Suddenly, everyone was dusting off their law books and talking about doctrines of frustration, which is a thing in our legal system. And along the way, you have companies defaulting. You have employees complaining about employers sacking them without just cause, or it was a retrenchment but disguised as something else other than a retrenchment. Of course, then you have landlords, coming on and perhaps insisting on a payment of rental Of course, throughout the past 2 to 3 years, you see a lot of intervention by our governments, by our government agencies. You have, of course, this general stay of execution on payment. You have, of course, in the more time-sensitive industries like weddings or live gigs, of course, there was intervention as well. All this is ancient history now, by now. We find that generally speaking, regardless of the kind of issue, the legal matters that our clients and of course the people around us that we have seen is one of enforcement. So regardless of what you are trying to do, how do you enforce your rights? How do you put a stay on the obligations that you are supposed to perform? And this has really been the cut and thrust of the issues, the underlying issues to the actual issues that we have faced over the past 3 years. Back to you, Bernard. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I can see from individual to companies to, so a lot of issues you must have faced. But what happened is, I can see like, when these kind of issues comes from during the tough time, it's practically, we don't know who to blame. The reason for every issue is totally different. The company will blame vendor, vendor will blame the customer will blame the entire thing happening, the pandemic. So how do you handle when this kind of situation, you handle take things by law, or you show empathy, or you show kind of, I won't say mercy, but at the same time, a kind of more like a mediate, not going by the law, but trying to be practical based on how do you take it forward?
Well, contrary to popular belief, lawyers are not robots. We are not an advanced artificial life form. We do feel. And it pains us just as much to see our clients go out of business or maybe struggle with the day-to-day. And in fact, during the pandemic, one thing that our firm did was to offer free notarization or commissioning services to our clients who were either stuck in Singapore and unable to execute documents overseas, or had to sign affidavits evidencing to their landlords that they have no money to pay rental. Because as you might recall, that was one of the more popular measures enforced by landlords in order for tenants to share in the cost savings or the subsidies that were handed out by the government at one point. So yes, along those lines, we try to help as much as we can. Generally speaking, however, for a law firm, for our firm at least, we also took the opportunity to survey the grounds for good manpower to take on. And, like what they always say, the Chinese character for danger or is always opportunity. And, so my Chinese is horrible. So, but the point really is there's always an opportunity that you can take advantage of. And we do see some of our clients pivot very spectacularly. We have seen, for example, there was a client of ours who was a professional musician. And during this time, all the gigs were cancelled, no doubt. And rather than sit there and, in the stupor and worry about her future, she grabbed the opportunity to start offering singing telegrams, if that's the appropriate term for it, doing song dedications over the internet, over YouTube. And according to her, it gave her a lifeline. So you have also, of course, companies that specialized in making computer equipment suddenly pivot into making PPEs, right? So one thing that my firm did as a law firm, we took the opportunity to survey the land for suitable manpower. And it was during this time where, although it did cost quite a bit, we managed to grow the team, and we managed to prepare the team for the lifting of all these restrictions, and we were able to hit the ground running as a result.
Okay, so I can see whatever you're saying. So people try to transform, so you said they transform, they disrupt the pandemic, they tried different ways. So when generally that's a natural thing, a person who is confident, when there is a stress in the market or some kind of, he's going to find another way, different ways. And so definitely what your customers done, I mean, that's a kind of disrupting the pandemic, trying ways. I mean, I appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about how your business, disrupted. That's going to be the next. But before that, I'm going to go to Andy. So Andy is a kind of in the like with the latest trends with the social media, the digital marketing and all that. So, my first question, Andy, what people are saying is after COVID, they're saying the traditional marketing is dead. That means nobody's looking at the newspapers, nobody's watching the TV. So everybody stick on to, online, websites, mobile apps and all that. So my question here is it social media is compulsory for businesses? Because before they said it's an optional. Now, like the people are feeling that you cannot miss, it's compulsory for every business. Even religious leaders are coming to that. Government politicians are coming there. Both of them, they don't need advertisement, but now they are coming there. So likewise, schools have come into social media. Schools generally used to be against social media. They tell people, students, don't go and be in Facebook, don't be there. Now schools are doing TikTok. So what is your take on this? How do you, tell this?
That's a good point. That's a great story, Bernard. So let's just take it back. Before social media, let's look at how the world has evolved. So if you look at the 70s, there was PC revolution. And then in the 80s and 90s, there was internet revolution. And then when the first Apple iPhone came in, it was like 2007, 2008. So that's when the social media market also eventually started with the rise of Orkut and then Facebook and so on. So if you ask me a question, is it mandatory for brands or any business to be online specific? Should they have an online presence? I would say, again, it's totally a business strategy that they want to actually adopt, whether their marketing strategy, whether their marketing budget would allow them to be socially savvy. Do they want that social presence? That's totally a business call. But in my opinion, right, in this day and age, I think, as you rightly said, more and more schools are on TikTok. Schools have actually had hybrid learning during this pandemic. So there is always a need for social media. So while Zoom and any other platforms like Microsoft Teams can help you to collaborate for online meetings, especially when people do not want to share their phone numbers, how could they possibly make announcements? So they make announcements via Facebook, or they do via any kind of modern collaborative platforms like learning management systems. So of course, all these would form the core of your MarTech ecosystem or your learning management system. So definitely social media is here to stay. And if you look at many of the brands, while they do promote their own products, while they do have all their branding activities on social media, there are specific brands which actually deals with their customer service, customer grievances, customer complaints. If somebody is posting anything negative on Facebook, how can you tackle that in such a way that you have a customer service department that is actively looking at your Facebook channels or Telegram channels, or there is a WhatsApp community that was introduced early in November. So if you have a community with several groups and people are actually talking bad about a brand, how can they address that? So there is definitely a need for social media, but again, it is totally up to the brands to actually go ahead and inculcate that in their ecosystem, whether they want to have the social media strategy. And it's not the question of mandatory or non-mandatory. I would say it's the question of when. So it's not a matter of if anymore. If you need a social media, it's a matter of when. I would put it that way.
Okay. Sounds good. So you're saying it's a matter of when. It's not that. So that is almost coming to like mandatory only.
Absolutely. So your customers are demanding it, and your customers are on various channels. So I could no longer send a same email. Hello there. Here is a birthday offer. And I'm not even getting it on a birthday date or birthday month. I'm getting it on a random month because the brands really do not know any data or any touch points about me. So it's always about sending the right offer to the right customer through the right channel. So you always want to be there where your customers are. If you look at China, predominantly people use WeChat. Most of the businesses adopt WeChat. If you go to Philippines, it's Viber. Vietnam has Zalo. But if you look at a global population, I would say WhatsApp is a great medium where you want to be, and where you can actually have your inbound customer success teams answering queries, and at the same time, your marketing and sales team sending out promotions. Like there's WhatsApp commerce now. At the click of a button, you can say yes or no, and then people can choose what are the products they want, what's the t-shirt size that I want to choose, what color, and then I say, yes, I want to order this. Then it automatically sends me a Alipay link or a PayPal link. I make the payment and I buy the product. So it's no longer about if, it's a matter of when. Yeah.
So my next question to you, Andy, is, for example, a popular business, which has got plenty of clients, they don't need to market at all. They are completely settled. They have a huge database. They are the number one. Do they still need social media?
Okay, good question. So let's say, as I said, social media is not only for creating brand awareness or to promote your products. You also use it for customer service, but that is for your current clients, right? But what if your strategy is also to acquire more customers? So if I were a user that is coming on your website, that's about 90% of your total addressable market, I would say. Any organization that has a marketing database, that only accounts for 10% of their actual marketing, because the 90% of the time, they do not have any data of their visitors, neither their email address nor their phone number. So how do you address to that market? So especially if I go to a Lazada or a Shopee, let's say I'm looking at a product and I did not put it on my wish list. I did not add it to my shopping cart. I did not fail the payment. But once I shut down the app in the next 30 minutes or so, I get the same product as an ad. I get it on YouTube. So it reminds me. So they make it a behavior for you to be able to make that purchase. That's how brands can increase their market share. They can increase the customer lifetime value and the average basket size and average order value and all that. Because it's always 80% of the time, it's best to retain your best customers and grow your wallet rather than having to acquire. But when it comes to an acquisition stage, right, that's where you would definitely need all these social media presences, because not always people are going to be looking at. So for example, I don't have a Facebook ID. I don't really log into Facebook to see any of the products or any of the brands or any such things. So how would you target me? So I looked at a specific ad on TikTok, because TikTok has a great way of being able to see the videos without having to log in from a browser itself. You don't even need the app. If somebody sends me a link for a TikTok video on WhatsApp, I click on the link, it opens on my Safari browser, I see the video. So how would you probably address that kind of an audience? So that's where engagement and personalization would come at scale, I would say. So how could you possibly send me something related to that? So let me give you an example here. So let's say I looked at let's say a FIFA jersey, all right, through a TikTok video, and I click on it and then I go into that website. How would you actually track me? So how would you start triggering my interest to see, is it the Germany jersey that I'm interested in? Or is it Japan or Argentina or whatever? So you could throw in some recommendations to trigger my interest, because when you spend money on that ad, you're spending $5 to $7 on that lead acquisition. So when I come into your website through that ad, you get one best shot to convert me. And how would you do that is through hyper personalization and speaking the language that'll resonate with me. If I'm looking at a jersey, you show me similar jerseys, and you don't leave it at that stage. So then you collect my information, because I'm no longer an anonymous customer or a user on your website. Now you have my information. So I made the first purchase. Now, how could you actually go ahead and make sure that I keep buying? The more I buy, the more revenue for your top line. So how could you make me to buy those products again and again, make it a compulsive behavior for your audience? So that is exactly what the power of social media is, how it can actually help you to send out an ad, and how those ads can bring those audience back into your website or your e-commerce mobile app, and how you can increase your wallet share of that customer. So I think that's one of the strategies. Yeah.
So so based on your answer, I feel that even a popular brand which has got a lot of customers, but still they need social media, because I think the people are spending more time on social media, so they need to be there. At the same time, the customer care, customer service, all it's become online now, understanding that. So it is more, I would say, like a kind of technology driven, understanding, a close watch on the, the moments of the customer. So, I mean, saying it's a good thing. I can see a lot of brands you're working in. I can see Samsung, L'Oreal, IKEA, Watson. I can see all the logos, so Decathlon. Domino's, Leno, and all that. So they are all top brands. I agree with that. I'm going to come back and ask about for small SME. So before that, before I ask that question, I'm going to go to Teck Keng. Teck Keng, who's the founder and managing director of MyDealMatters. MyDealMatters is a platform where people sell businesses, people can buy, they do M&A deals. So my question here, for Teck Keng is, during the pandemic, during the COVID, people were trying to sell and people trying to, sell their businesses, and some of the people trying to buy businesses. So my question is it a right time to buy a business during these tough times? Now it's like we say COVID and recession. It's like still the economy is very down. Many businesses are not. So is it a right time to buy, or we need to wait after a year and watch, and we have to buy? What is your advice on that, Teck?
Thank you, Bernard. I think before that, I would just like to tell Andy over here that I'm also one of the victims of all the social media advertisement. And I think I need to stop. I need to find a good way to stop my wife from logging into Facebook, this kind of stuff, so that she can stop buying things from Lazada. But coming back to the question over here, I think I'm sorry that I probably had to be the saddest among the other two panelists, because when my clients comes to me, they are very, very often they are looking to me to help them, to sell their business. There could be a few reasons on why they are doing that, but I think I would just probably want to share over here is that, first of all, their business could be doing well, but there are no second generation or third generation that is coming up to take over. So they are quite sad regarding this. Now, during this pandemic, a lot of traditional business was shut down, was shut off. All right, they have to turn to e-commerce, social media in this aspect. Now, while they may have enjoyed great sales pre-COVID period, all right. So but right now during the pandemic, during the COVID period, they may be suffering on the decrease in sales in this case. Now, at that point of time, because of their financial statement is in a good shape, all right, then it is very good for them to come on board or to sell their business, because their financial statements looks fantastic. Now, at this moment, I would say that probably a little bit more on post-COVID period, buyer will have to be very cautious here. We are looking at a very we may probably be looking at a very we may be looking at illusion. Companies that you think that they are not performing well, but in fact after the post-pandemic they will probably be performing well. But you can't just judge the historical data for the last 2 years to determine the future prospect of the company. I would say that this could be a good time to go in to buy some company that are earning good revenues, but over the last 2 years they have really expand all their cash flow, and they have a good business model and waiting to be propelled to the next level. Other than that, of course, you have some that are doing just fire sales, and they wanted to exit the industry because of they burn their money during the 2 years and wanted to quit out of the pandemic, out of the industry. We are seeing that also. Big fish eating the small fish. All right. I'm sure that our panelist lawyer here, Mr. Samuel Yuen, would have already seen quite a lot of M&A or people coming out to asking him to help in the M&A deals in this case.
Thanks, Teck Keng. Yeah, actually, that is quite close to the truth. Initially, however, there was, of course, this perception that because it is a recessionary period, we are flush with cash, and therefore it ought to be a buyer's market because businesses ought to be failing. But because of the interventive measures that were provided, you find that most companies that could survive did survive. Of course, those that couldn't close down. Okay, and I think Mr. Lawrence Wong at the point also highlighted that they were keen to help those who can survive do better. Yeah. Now, fast forward a couple of months, we of course now us taking a more relaxed approach. We have, of course, done away with a lot of the restriction measures. You'll find that with that, the removal of or the end of all these subsidies and measures that the government has put in, they have been retracted. You do find a greater sense that maybe companies which were surviving because of the subsidies are now maybe in a position where cash flow is a problem, and they need either intervention by investors or outright maybe they're tired and they want to exit the game. And increasingly, we're seeing more of this. This year alone, some of these projects I've embarked on, including those with Teck here, did show signs that maybe we are at the beginning of a season where acquisitions and consolidation is going to be a real thing. But who knows, right? We can't predict the future. But yes, at this point in time, there is an uptick in exits. Even Manchester United selling. So there you go. So we will see where that takes us. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, good to hear, Samuel. So coming back to Teck, so MyDealMatters helps buyers and sellers. Somebody, even you mentioned somebody coming to sell, you help them to evaluate the business and all that. So so that you can get the right buyer for the for somebody selling the business. So to sell a business, to sell a business in Singapore, so what are the kind of prerequisites? What all you required so that, because a lot of people, they want to sell their business, but they don't know what all the documents are, what the prerequisite to put it in MyDealMatters so that you can get a buyer. So what are the prerequisites? If you can talk about that, that would be really nice.
Sure. I think first of all, when seller want to sell the business, let's just don't sell on impulse. All right. If you really want to fetch a very good price for your business, you have to prepare yourself for it. You need to nobody wants to buy a lousy product. Nobody wants to buy a sinking ship. So you need to prepare the financial statement. You need to make sure that your company is in a good shape in this case. So definitely we will need to have financial statements as well as to gauge the financial performance of the company. Now, having to say so, there are some startup that doesn't have at least 3 years of financial record. Then that is going to affect the valuation, because everybody will be claiming, and in fact we are seeing a lot. Actually, they come over to us and say that my business actually worth 7 million, my business actually worth 10 million. Please help me to get a buyer to buy it. And when I ask them, what makes you think that your business is 7 million and 10 million? They say, do you know that how much hard work that I pour in, how much blood I have poured in, how much sweat that I pour in? But I say, those sweat and those blood can't be measured, unless you use a measuring cylinder for that. But otherwise, you can't do that. So for MyDealMatters, this platform itself was actually came out during the pandemic situation. During the pandemic, why? It's because at the point of time, we are seeing that there's a lot of buyer and seller that wants to transact, but they can't find good business to invest in, So we decided to link these three party apps, buyer, seller, as well as professional, together, giving them the benefit for them to talk to one another, as well as this platform itself will also be providing a basic valuation. So this will allow them to start to gauge, how much does this business work? Can I go in? Can I go that? Now, if they decided to transact with one another, they can also use the professional that was listed in the website, to talk about the deals, to carry out the deals for them.
Okay.
Yeah, Bernard, let me jump in here, right? And just to back up what Teck is saying, right? Because of the past 3 years, right, the pandemic situation has actually skewed a lot of the financial statements and the results of companies, particularly where they are retail facing. You find that retail businesses tend to do quite badly during this period of time. So what we have in my firm we have encountered was that sellers looking to showcase pre-pandemic information. So instead of just the past 3 years, which would start from 2020, they are asking to showcase from 2017 to 2019. So the long and short of it really is, in order to attract any kind of traction for your proposed sale, you do need to get a proper valuation done. It could be basic, but it must be proper. So that is something which I think, from my own experience, cannot be stinged on. Case in point, I had a client that was keen to sell a business in the service industry, in one of the service industries, and he was asking for 1 million for essentially each company that he had, altogether 2 million, 2 companies. And I took a look at his FS, and of course, lawyers' numbers are kryptonite, right? So I looked at it, but from my own experience, I felt that it wasn't just what he was saying it was. So I referred him to Teck, who did a proper valuation, a very basic one, I must add. And he came back beaming because he said, "Oh, thank you for introducing Teck, because of that very sensible valuation he did. I now have a company that is worth 4 million in total," right? So sometimes we underestimate our own businesses, we may not understand fully the mechanisms and the valuation methodologies that go into evaluating a business from, say, the IT industry or from the F&B industry. So it is really something which, if you want to get a good price or you want to attract the right attention, you need to get the right kind of support. And in this case, first step, valuation. Second step, of course, surround yourself with the right kind of professionals that can make the deal happen for you. One common problem that we face is that if we're acting for sellers or potential sellers, some of my clients are courted by larger entities who are looking to enter the space, the very same space in Singapore. And they approach my clients saying that, "Oh, we are thinking of collaborating with you. How about you show us everything under the hood, and here's an NDA." Usually, if we can intervene, we would, because an NDA protects only confidential information. And not everything that you show under the hood will be confidential by the nature of that definition of what confidential information is, right? So there will be information that would be considered proprietary, but not confidential. So this is where the rubber hits the road, You might think, "Oh, I'm protected by an NDA," but yes, you are. But what does it actually protect? We do not know. So it is important to cast the net wide when approached by a potential buyer or investor, to insist on, say, an NDA plus, which really is equivalent to a letter of intent, put some skin in the game, like what some of my clients from India will call earnest money, but in Singapore, we just call it a deposit. So have some kind of skin in the game, have protection over not just your confidential information, but proprietary information, maybe even having some kind of a promise that there is some kind of exclusivity in the deal itself.
If I could just continue with that topic a little bit here, but sidetrack a little bit on the M&A deal. When the client actually come back to me regarding their financials, when they come back to me on their financial statements, and sometimes I just feel that it's not that their business model is not good. And when I was having an interview session with them, trying to understand a little bit more about business, it turns out that they don't have a social media strategy. They are still in the traditional way of doing business. I opened the retail store, I opened up my consultancy firm, I just rely on the word of mouth, But for marketing, the idea here is, who cares about who you know? It's who knows you, And maybe for this aspect, once they probably, that's what my advice to them is, that they may need to turn over to some social media guru like Andy, to teach them, on how should they leverage on social media. maybe for this portion wise, I think since our topic is on a turnaround, Andy could probably share some light on how they can use, social media to help them.
Yeah. So yeah, that's nice. And what Samuel said also pretty nice. I mean, like about the valuation, I think people say that valuation should be supported with the right people, as you said, plus a good storytelling, that's required. They say that for a business also, even a good storytelling, based on that, all the startups are getting evaluated. So now coming back to Andy, as Teck said, so when we talk about turnaround management, where turnaround is more like a loss-making company to profit-making, or a company which has become a kind of a slowdown due to economy, we can go to turn around it to bring it back to the pre-pandemic. So for SMEs, to do a turnaround, so how do you think how they can leverage the online platforms? So I know you have a lot of top brands, but I'm talking about SMEs, some kind of a small, medium-sized enterprises, how they can leverage the social media, to turn around their business, to get more customers, to get more business. If you can give some suggestions, that would be really great.
Sure, Bernard. Thank you so much for that question. So again, right, one of the key things that I would always tell my customers is whether you're an enterprise or a top tier, or whether you're a conglomerate, or you're just about to get on a Shopify e-commerce and start selling stuff. One of the key things that I would always say is you should be able to personalize the content based on your buyer persona. So if somebody is interested, let's say I'm looking at a Levi's website, I look at some products like, let's say, a denim jacket, or I'm looking at a t-shirt, or I'm looking at a jeans. So when I come back, I'm not buying anything. So a week later, I come back. So you are able to have that information in the form of a specific events and attributes that comes from my behavior. So as a brand, I think as a part of your marketing strategy, while social media is very essential for you to be able to market your products, understand your customers, cater to customer service, if there are any problems, solve that out. And at the same time, you should also understand your intention of the user. What is your buying behavior? What are the things that they're looking at on your website? So that's where all these different martech platforms can come in and help you. They can come in handy. So if you're on Shopify, there are a variety of different plugins to understand your user behavior. But if you're on non-Shopify traditional e-commerce sites, if you're built on a Magento, or let's say if you have got your own in-house team that has built an e-commerce website with a payment gateway linked to it, so you want to know beyond the transactions. So I came into the website, I bought like $200 worth of stuff. But at the same time, you should know what was the amount of time that I spent on the website, and what are the things that I actually looked at before this particular product actually triggered my interest or resonates with what my need was. So once you are able to understand your customer to that level, right? So you have to go digging deeper, because in this day and age, data is your gold mine. So if I looked at 10 different products, I looked at a chinos, I looked at a t-shirt, I looked at a cap, I looked at a belt, I looked at a shoe, I looked at 5 products, and I bought one product for $20, whereas you could have actually sold me worth $250 or $300 worth of goods. But if you were able to track my behavior on your website, only then you will be able to do so. So that's why it's very essential for brands to understand their customers and know their intention and behavior. That's where the MarTech platforms can help you, whether it's tracking tools or in such a way that you want to personalize. So I've finished my purchase. So I bought a $20 worth of belt or a cap or something like that. So 3 weeks or maybe 3 days later, you can send in an email saying your order has been shipped. Hope you like your cap or belt. And a week later, you can say, hey, while you were buying your belt or cap, you also looked at this chinos and t-shirt and jeans. Are you heading out for a party? This should be the best wear for your party at Zook or something like that. So that'll trigger my interest. And I do get connected with the brand, because while I bought the stuff, they sent me a confirmation email and they sent you a thank you email. They also know, like, what is my interest? So that's what people really care about in this day and age, because it's no longer about having a brick and mortar store alone and not being able to cater to your online users. If you do cater to your online users, you need to be able to understand about your user behavior. When was the last time actually any one of us had an experience where a store manager or a supervisor was able to remember what we purchased 2 years ago? That is impossible, right? Before COVID, you went to a store, they might have probably forgotten you. But if you had an online website where you track every single behavior or intention of your user, you can actually throw that back to him or her and say like, hey, you looked at this and you added this to your wish list. I think it's time to buy now. So that's what we are all falling to. And that's what in this day and age is very important for brands to understand and cater accordingly. Even if your business is not doing so well after you just launched an e-commerce website, because any business, when you get into the e-commerce digital side of things, it is like a baby. It has to first crawl, walk, run, and then it has to go into a marathon. It's not going to reap you diamonds overnight. So any marketing strategy has to be a sustainable one, and it'll reap you results over a period of time. That is based on our experience working with all these mid-level and top-tier partners. And that'll be my 2 cents, I would say.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. And what you're saying is absolutely right, because now the social media platform, also become more crowded. So the results taking some time. As you said, it's not you cannot straight away go or run. So it needs to be a baby, then crawl. Good, So I can see here in a chat, somebody's asked an interesting question about the FTX, which is the recent cryptocurrency exchange, failure. Before going to that, I'm going to ask, before going, definitely, I think Samuel will answer that after that. But before that, I have a question for Samuel. So being a law firm, law firm generally believe in a face-to-face, meeting a customer or the judge, everything, kind of a face-to-face interaction. But during the COVID, so you cannot meet them by face-to-face. Things have become so, generally anybody, and I feel advocate, either they'll send a detailed mail and they'll say, come and meet me. It's a kind of thing. So how did you turn around your business during pandemic? Where your customers could not meet you, clients could not come and meet you. Then you're going to the court, the judge is not available. Is it a kind of how the turnaround management when it comes to law firms happened during the pandemic?
Thanks for asking that question, Bernard. I think recently, maybe I just shared it. Recently, I engaged some of my newly qualified practitioners in a internal roundtable, and one question I asked them was this: what's your ideal client? And one of them very ironically replied, my ideal client is someone who doesn't call me, doesn't look for me, and just tell me what he needs, and I just relies on me to perform the work. So he's looking for someone who is minimal contact. I think it's a blessing that my type of business potentially can pivot in many ways. And I do recall at the beginning of 2020, after I decided that this COVID situation is going to be serious, my firm went into overdrive. We pivoted. We tested our capacity for full work from home at a time when the nation was going to DORSCON orange. And by the time we were told that, everyone has to stay home, we were more than prepared for it. My IT vendors at the time actually jokingly said that we bought the last Dell business computer available on the island, because Penang went into, had an MCO and it went into shutdown. Generally as a business owner myself, the ability to forecast is important. The ability to anticipate is important as well. And through that anticipation, we were blessed enough to actually pivot our business in a way which allows us to video call with most clients. In the situations where the clients were unable to video call us, of course, we set up alternative methodologies, like maybe just doing the transaction over the phone lines. More importantly, it's about being able to continue with the work. And a large part of what happened wasn't so much of the front facing with the client, but the ability to assess your resources remotely and to get the work done without everyone in the team being in the same spot. Of course, in my business, I've always held the view that being in the same spot at the same time allows for many micro conversations and micro teaching moments to happen. And these micro moments actually help make your younger practitioners more resilient and stronger in terms of their practice. And that was, in fact, the challenge that I faced. But of course, as the rules relax, we find ways and means. We have a hybrid work from home. So that does help as well. In any business, you must anticipate and be able to forecast what your stakeholders need. And one thing that we were quite blessed in is that as the socio-economic situation took a turn for the worse, we were, I know it sounds very cruel, but we were actually able to take advantage of that situation as well. During the pandemic, of course, my family practice team members did very well. So there's always something for someone, and it is important that you make your own businesses recession-proof by having a diversity of offerings.
Very good, very good. Because
sorry, just to cut in a little bit here. I think just now Samuel talked about the anticipation. I think that's very important, because for us as a business owner, we should be working on our business and not in the business. Now, there are some of the clients that came over to MyDealMatters over here. When we take a look at their financial statement and we're asking what is their plan, they have no idea about their own cash flow management. They have no idea of how their financial health for their companies looks like, and probably they need to talk to their accountants to think of a better strategy to turn around the business and to cut down the cost, because they are just haphazardly spending the money and eroding the values of their companies. So you need to anticipate that, in a sense, when it comes down to pandemic, what are you going to do about it? If you have already hopped onto social media, probably say 1 or 2 years ago, before the pandemic start, you'll probably bloom, during the pandemic, and you can continue your financial growth in this case. But you need to anticipate. You can't just rely on the valuer just to come in and give a good valuation for you, but you need to make sure that you can able to project a good financial health in the future.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely right. And also Teck, what you're saying is right. And what Samuel said, you did, remote, you actually become busy during that, it's a kind of, then you're remote, you try to explore yourself. I would say that's an absolute exact turnaround management you've done during the time, so when people know, for example, take Twitter, for example, now it's a kind of a merger and acquisition where the CEOs, the owners losing the consistency every day they're coming with. So now people aware of this during the pandemic, buying, selling, where most of the business owners lose their consistency, because exactly when something changes, suddenly they'll come today and say, hey, why can't we try this? Then after 4 days, they come and tell the team, why can't you try that? So as a business owners, and I'm very good to hear that as a law firm, you said you become busier during the pandemic. That means you reinvented yourself without knowing or knowingly, and you've taken this as a kind of a opportunity to transform. And I'm very, very happy to hear that. Definitely, I think even for our listeners, I think it'll be very useful how firms like you can change. You're saying the remote opportunity and all that. So coming back, to Andy, regarding the marketing side of it, the digital side of it, where companies, SMEs, and all that too. So, what is your way, the future? What do you think? Because now the social media has become a bit crowded. They feel that, oh my God, there are too many players in the market. Some people still feel, oh, we don't know where to. So what is, the previous question you answered it, but still, as an SME, if somebody is going to start now a new business, but they cannot afford to have a marketing platform like you. So a person like starting a boutique or a person home, a bakery, a home catering, what are the top 3 channels you think the social media handles, whether it's a Twitter or Instagram or Facebook? Or so this is, I'm talking about an individual who's like a kind of having a boutique or a kind of a home baking business, what is your advice on that?
Sure. So, as you rightly said, Facebook or Twitter has become an overly crowded area when it comes to social media. I think that's where evolutions or any platform that has evolved over a period of time has helped modern SMEs. So one, for example, is TikTok, where you can have like TikTok Reels and TikTok, I don't know what they call it in TikTok. I think YouTube, it's called Shorts. TikTok, it's called Reels, I guess. Instagram has short videos as well. So people engage with your content when it's more of a storytelling concept with videos or with funny creatives or with memes. People do get the message very clearly compared to a traditional blog post or a long written blog post on a Facebook page or any article for that matter. So I think one of the key takeaways from social media, I would say, is the more creative you get and the more engaging the content is, I think it'll reach out to your mass audience, or whether even if your audience is less to, let's say it's about 50,000 or 100,000 people in your vicinity, for example. And number two, if you look at the population itself in Singapore, out of 6.57 million people, we also have 19% of aging population, people who may not have smartphones. How do you actually cater to them? So that is still an unaddressed, untapped market, I would say. People still, or brands still rely on traditional print media. Like we do get a lot of brochures from telcos. You can sign up for a new internet at $39.99 a month. When you open up your letterbox, it's always there. Or you do get from property companies which are helping you to sell your apartment or buy a new apartment. You always see that. So how could you possibly narrate those stories into shorter form of videos, which could actually show people on YouTube or TikTok? All right, so that is one. Especially people who do not have Facebook accounts or Twitter accounts, how could you cater to those audience? I think that is still an untapped market, I would say. And how the more creative brands can get and the more platforms that can come into play will be able to answer those questions accordingly, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, you said some of the untapped social handles, and definitely I think that'll be a good suggestion. I would also agree with that. So yeah, next one is I'm going to ask a small, I won't say it's a question, but that somebody has asked, about, I think it's slightly away from our topic of turnaround management, but, but still I'm going to ask Samuel about this, the person is asking, due diligence is a necessity for buyers when planning to purchase a business. With the recent collapse of FTX, many speculate that one of the main reasons was due to poor management and compliance issues with big buyers such as Temasek. So that is going on to the big players, which is totally slightly kind of away from our topic. My question here is, what is the importance, how important the kind of, I would say, like compliance issues when it comes to buyers to kind of when planning to purchase a business? So what are the general compliance you look into it before you purchase a business? If you can talk about that would be great.
I think Bernard, I typed a short response to Mr. Anonymous there. I think generally we don't want to speculate as to what exactly happened before the dust settles. But any form of due diligence requires a thorough investigation of the information available at hand. So it is not always fixed. It is very dynamic, and as I answered, it is really an art form as opposed to an exact science. When you do enough of these due diligence, they do take on a certain flavor. Or you do expect certain things to happen, but by and large, it is not cast in stone. So there's no way to say what ought to or ought not to happen, beyond the fact that we request for information, and sometimes we don't get all the information that we need. I will also want to say, because Mr. Anonymous also asked another question, so I thought I could address it as well. I would say in any industry across the board, the problem with businesses, or rather the problem with any product is always a question of greed. right? So do you know enough about the product to, and also are you objective enough? So sometimes it could be a very innocent product, but it ends up being something like a Ponzi scheme. So I don't have an answer concerning FTX, and neither do I want to comment on crypto. But I would say that generally speaking, part of why you need a professional team in any transaction is to analyze and discern the true nature of the business that you're targeting, and perhaps help red flag the business. And basically, if you see something that you don't like or is insurmountable, you walk away from it. Case in point, and this was a sorry, my daughter, is trying to stop, please. So you find that in one, I want to bring up this example. In one case, right, a client of mine asked us to assist in due diligence. And we ended up discovering that there was some irregularities in the way the accounts had captured GST. And the amount that was claimed as GST was many percent over the actual turnover. In fact, it was more than 7%, right? Which of course then triggers a lot of alarm bells, right? So where did all this extra money come from? And eventually we found out that part of it was actually in relation, it was captured in relation to, say, a shareholder's loan at one point, or rather a loan to a shareholder. So it got really complicated really fast. And our due diligence from the finance and legal side happens to work together in a very meaningful way, which allows us to highlight this issue to client. And of course, it was red flag for client. And in the end, client walked away from it. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So nicely put.
Sorry,
yes.
but maybe I just have 2 points I want to put it in over here. I think the first point is due diligence is definitely very important in an M&A deal. Right? You got to. A lot of people just rush into the deal, rush to buy, rush to sell, but they forgot the due diligence. That is very important. Second point that I want to make here is audit report does not equivalent to due diligence, because a lot of times, say that the participants or the viewers, they may say, all right, this company does audit, so I think that it should be a nice company, should be a good company, but that doesn't mean that way, because auditors they are coming in from the perspective, they are here to express opinion whether the financial statement is prepared in a true and fair state, but they are not doing 100% check on what's going on. So definitely due diligence does not equivalent to audit. So that's the 2 points that I want to make.
I mean, very well said. Yes, due diligence is not equal to audit. And somebody asked, anonymous asked, I think Samuel put it in a very neat way, not going to the complexity of the politics behind that, as you said. But I still feel I can say that, is it true that is due to lack of due diligence? He's asking the question. But I feel maybe before investing, the due diligence would have been positive and everything good. Then after the business started in a couple of years, things would have changed. Maybe some kind of thing, indiscipline could have happened. Maybe due diligence when they did before the investment, it would have been a good kind of a report. What do you think, Samuel, about that?
Well, I would say that due diligence always acts as a snapshot in time, and it doesn't predict the future, right? And exactly. Of course, once you take over a business, to put it very bluntly, you're free to run it to the ground if you so wish to, right? So sometimes, of course, it's not your desire or your intervention that caused it to crash. It could be because something was hidden from you, right? With ill intent, perhaps. And this is where a well-drafted sale and purchase agreement with the right kind of protection can augment the good work done at the due diligence level and provide you with legal rights, contractual rights that you may enforce should the situation arise. So case in point, one situation a client of mine faced was this. He wanted to buy over a company, but he dispensed with due diligence against our best advice. It turned out that after he purchased the company, he was approached by a local bank saying that the company happened to be a guarantor for a mortgage, and the mortgagor had actually run off and disappeared to thin air, and now the company is on the hook. So this was probably something that proper due diligence would have turned out. But because of the way we structured the agreement, he had, of course, legal rights, which eventually he was able to enforce against the seller of the company. So the two are quite hand in hand. It is important to do your due diligence from a legal, operational, and of course, most importantly, financial perspectives to get proper valuation done so that you know how long you will take to turn around your expenditure, right? Or for the matter, determine what kind of structure you would like to enforce for this acquisition. So, of course, in some cases where it is possible, you may in fact do a leverage buyout and turn what is essentially zero input into a potential $5 billion sale of one of the most beloved clubs in the world. You know, so anything goes, anything can happen, but it all starts from all these basic building blocks that are taking, and I have been talking about. It starts from, of course, building the business in a way which has sustainability and longevity, and getting the right deal in place to sell the business. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, very interesting. I mean, as I started earlier, you know, I think the lawyers, they know the ground as well as they know the politics side of it, and they are the kind of so you must be top notch when it comes to the local news, and whether it's I feel in some cases even the politicians are dependent on the lawyers. The lawyers are. I feel literally the law firms are powerful than politicians.
Oh well, I'm not really sure about that. I think the lawyers depend on the politicians more than they depend on us.
Is it? Oh, yeah. I thought the law is above everybody. No.
Nobody is above the law. Yeah, but I think we do not practice in a vacuum, and that is in some ways what makes the practice of law so vibrant and interesting. You'll find that not two cases are the same. I'm not saying that just so I can charge more, but it is in reality. After 22 years of doing this line of work, you do see that it is not always the same. In fact, it's never the same. So I think whenever coming to a deal, it is very important for you to get the right groundwork done. And one of my favorite soccer players, since it's World Cup, and I have to talk about one of my favorite soccer players, Paul Scholes. He mentioned at one point in an interview that he had no need for football agents. All he needed was his accountant and his lawyer. So, yeah. So back to you.
Good.
I'm getting a lot of hate right now.
Even the soccer team needs turnaround management. Looks like some of the favorite teams losing to,
Yeah. The shocking World Cup.
Yeah. So they also need a turnaround.
Yeah.
I mean, management. So good to hear. Good to know all the side, because I'm having Andy, who's the marketing specialist, having Samuel, who's a lawyer advocate, so all the problems, issues, and taking, he knows about the buying and selling industry, kind of thing. So before we finish, and somebody's asking, for the winter period that is already approaching, hyper-personalization is often associated with the use and as you go cover. Okay, for a smaller business still growing, how can I then still effectively market to my audience considering a much lower budget? Of course, this is not related to our topic, but that can be, maybe Andy can take that privately, that's more into the product side of it. So I mean, before we finish, I want to emphasize here, anybody has any questions for the panelists, there is a chat window, you can even type your questions. We definitely, our panelists are ready to answer, so is there any questions, related to, business, turnaround management, how to succeed during this pandemic, you can put it across. At the same time, if you want something more in depth, you can still leave your email along with the chat, we can communicate, or leave your number. Along with the chat, somebody from our side can, communicate, discuss, talk about that. So it's a very good session. We had, thanks Andy, thanks Samuel. Samuel is one of the busiest lawyers in Singapore, flying for different countries. I remember, so as well as Teck also is busy with a lot of networking, entrepreneurs. I'm very happy to have all of you here, so we'll give just the last minute. Let's see, is there any questions have come, on the chat, so that otherwise we can finish it. So if anybody want to have ask a question, you can raise your hand, and then you can put it on the chat window. So I think for that question, I think Andy, you already replied. Yeah, you can email. Yeah, you're given your email. That's awesome. So thank you so much for all the participants. I think we had a wonderful, we have crossed more than an hour. Oh, okay. I'm thinking still we haven't reached 1 hour. I can say it's more than 1 hour. So it's pretty interesting. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for all your inputs, and thanks, Samuel, all your suggestions. A pleasure, and thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
A lot of learning from Sam and Teck as well. So thank you so much for having me on this webinar. Yeah, pretty exciting.
Welcome, everyone. So we'll close, and I think frequently we should be doing once in 2 months. We're planning to have panel discussions. Thank you, Teck. This panel discussion is brought to you by MyDealMatters. MyDealMatters is, once again, it's a platform for buying and selling a business, in Singapore, and they're going to expand in Malaysia and other places as well soon. It's all the best for MyDealMatters and Teck, who's the founder, and anything for any law related issues. Don't forget Samuel. He can even though he's busy, he's got a big team. Likewise, even Teck also is busy, but they got a big team behind. So whoever it is here. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and a nice weekend ahead. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.